Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we have some news coming out of War Thunder in the form of the second season of World War Mode. Yes, it's coming soon, and it looks like it's going to be part of the Pacific campaign. Now luckily what we have is a nice little introductory video to what's going to be going on in the new season. So what I'm going to do in this video is play it, and then we'll go through the thoughts on what the news article says, and also some extra information that you might have missed. So here's the video. So as you can see from the video, there's a hell of a lot going on with this new second season. We're moving to a different part of the world. Instead of fighting stuff in Europe, now we are in the Pacific, which means it's going to be heavily American and Japanese focused, which should be pretty fun, especially since both nations, they do have their twos and fros, meaning that certain parts of their nations, they have a lot going for them, and then, other parts, they're definitely inferior to their counters. So it's going to be interesting to see how the operations actually fold out and, the general ways that they work, because you got to remember, World War Mode is not just about winning, an operation. Sometimes it's about, can you hold this point, or can you dominate the enemy as much as you can, instead of just, winning an out-and-out slog. So overall, they have changed a bunch of things, making it easier for individuals to get involved, but we as techies, or the European Canadian Elite Squad, we're going to be going into World War Mode just like we did last time. We also have some other squadrons who are also going to take part, with Tech WS and also the class squadrons. I'm sure we'll be getting involved in World War Mode to have a bit of fun with it, and it should be great overall. Last time in the first season we had a lot of fun in it. It was nice coming together as a full squadron to be able to play through it. Yes, there were some few hiccups here and there, but that's what you're always going to get from the first season, and also I'm hoping that they are ironed out in the second season. They do go through in the article a bunch of changes that they're making. The first major change is the fact that if you didn't have the vehicles researched before, in World War Mode, what would happen is it would give you a stock version of this vehicle. This basically meant that you could kind of get trapped by either individuals, or you could get trapped by the vehicles that were available, because they didn't give you too much time in which you had to know which vehicles to spade or which vehicles to research. And what would happen is you could have the best vehicles, around, which at the time was stuff like KVs or Shermans and Jumbos and stuff, which were not fully modified. So therefore you had a situation where you couldn't do too much, especially if it was given to a random player instead of one of your squadron members. So now the way that they've changed it is, instead of it being in a stock condition, you are able to get the fully modified version or spaded version of the vehicle. So it says, now before a battle you will receive vehicles with all research modifications, even if the nation for which you are playing currently in World War Mode hasn't been researched for you. So now we not only exclude the unpleasant situation situations with the loss of rare supplied vehicles, but we also simplify participation in World War mode for players who haven't researched all in-game nations. So it means anyone can take part now. Anyone is available to play, and you don't have to do it at a massive disadvantage. Instead, now it is much easier for you to get involved. So there's really no reason for you not to get involved, even as an individual player, if you want to play through this mode. The only issue is something that I've thought of, where what if you have the vehicle researched and bought? Will it actually have the full modifications, aka spaded, or will it be at the level that you have it spaded? So if you have a vehicle and let's say you've researched 3 modifications off of it, will that mean that that vehicle is completely completed, or does it mean that you will only get those 3 modifications? That is something that hasn't been confirmed, but I'm sure it will be at least after the first operation. Also in the video, we can see the fact that the jungle map seems to be being used as a platform as one of the operations. The jungle map was one of the earliest maps that was added to War Thunder in the former ground forces, and it's nice to finally see that it has naval on it and also ground and air at the same time. Should be interesting from a commander's point of view, which is really nice. They've also added in vehicle groups. What this pretty much means is that now it is much easier to work out which vehicles you want to bring to the battle. When it comes to the preparation and setting up, what you need to bring in, it's just going to be a lot easier from that point of view. They've also changed the battle respawn rules slightly, so that is something that you have to take into account. They also say, and this is how it will work, in the preparation time for a battle, you'll be able to choose one of the vehicles from each group represented in the army. Selected vehicles will be given out with fully researched modifications, suspended weaponry, and even additional crew slots if there are as many groups in the army. Players who don't have vehicles researched in any particular nation will also receive vehicles with fully researched modifications from each group without option of choosing them. So they'll basically just be given standardized ones or default group vehicles, and we'll get into that bit in a little bit. So therefore, you will be able to get, those vehicles fully researched, but not always the ones that you want. So that is a bit of a catch. Even with that sentence there, it would be nice to know if that fully researched thing still applies to vehicles which are semi-researched on, your end. Now, the next thing is new armies are coming. Obviously, with the scenarios that are involved, it is time to bring along the Japanese and also the Americans, mainly. Being in the Pacific Theater, those were the 2 major nations clashing, and what that also brings along, as you've seen, is naval forces. And it's not like they're not going whole hog. We even have some heavy cruisers when it comes to this World War mode. They're not, cheaping out on just stuff like PT boats. There's everything up to massive heavy cruisers. So you're going to have a lot of fun with these massive vehicles. I'm not exactly how they're going to fit, but we'll see. The first thing is that they've added some new game modes, or the missions, I should say, in the operation. The first one is a convoy fleet mission, and this is pretty much aircraft and ships versus other ships, and it seems like you just have to be able to either defend the naval convoy or attack the naval convoy, depending on what side you are. So this is convoy fleet. As I said, the attacking aircraft army needs to destroy the naval convoy. The defending army must protect the vehicles by controlling ships. So pretty much it's the same as the air and ground one that we used to have, apart from the convoy now is actual naval based, and it's going to be stuff like landing boats and I'm sure stuff like cargo ships, so not exactly easy to hit compared to the stuff which was on the ground. The next mission that is also going to be available, which is new, is the domination of fleets, and this is just a battle between 2 naval armies, and the purpose of which is to capture and hold the strategic points or mutual destruction. And both sets of players get access to ships, and you can bring in reinforcement aircraft to be able to help you out in getting these dominations. And it seems like what it is, it's patrol boats, light and heavy cruisers, and then what seem to be destroyers versus destroyers and light cruisers. So one team will probably have an advantage, being able to get those smaller ships in and get the caps off quickly, whereas the larger ships will be able to bombard about them. The other one we have is just battle, which is just ships versus ships. So battles between two boat squadrons, the purpose of which is to capture and hold the strategic points or mutual destruction. Once again, under the control of players as boats and reinforcements and aircraft, so there probably won't be, a bunch of AI on that. And then the last one is the convoy fleet, and this is without aircraft, actual ships, not boats, actually fighting, So basically the attacking squadron must destroy the enemy naval convoy, and the defending side is required to protect it. So very similar to what we see from the ground sense, just in a naval game mode. There is no game modes here which actually cross naval into the ground sense. It is either naval versus naval or air and naval versus air and naval. There is nothing which includes ground stuff. So for me, I think that's good. Otherwise, it would be a little bit crazy. The next thing is landing armies. So this is what we talked about before with the idea of landing craft. It looks like there's going to be some kind of landing missions where you have to protect the landing craft going in and destroy some coastal batteries, which should be fun, since they also mention coastal artilleries here, and also marine squadrons, which are classic boat destroying cruiser squadrons that will help you gain superiority of the sea, which sounds incredibly fun. The next one is awards for commanders. So one of the big issues, at least that we ran into, is the fact that there was no awards for the commanders. Most of the awards were done in the games themselves, like in the actual skirmishes, so therefore the commander who was commanding the battlefield didn't really get anything out of it. Seems like they've decided to change that, which is great. What they're going to do is the contribution to the victory is more noticeable, so now you'll be able to compete for valuable awards by showing your activity and efficiency in the management of armies. For each action in the operation, you receive 1 activity point, and at the end of the operation, your squadron will be assigned a rating that will be distributed in proportion of the earned activity points between all the commanders of your squadron. So if you're on the winning side, you get 200, on the losing side 40, for victory in each battle 5, and for defeat 1. So even if, you fail, you're still able to get some points behind you, which will be nice for the commanders. Something that was definitely a problem when it came to the first season was there really was no, when it comes to commanding, it was a thankless job. So it's nice to see that has changed. There's also a bunch of other changes which have also come in. The fact is they've added some new AI units. The first one is a Daihatsu class, and this is a boat which is a landing craft for the Japanese. It's a simple one, it just holds troops, and I'm guessing it'll just be fodder in stuff like those convoy missions where you have to take them out, or in those landing missions. The next one is the G5 class landing boat. Yes, it's exactly the same as the G5 that we have in the game, apart from instead of the torpedoes, what it has is a bunch of men on them. So therefore you're going to have to probably machine gun them down before they land, otherwise they're going to take over the area. The next one is a 37mm anti-tank Type 1 cannon. This is just a simple AT gun. If you remember in the assault missions, what we had was a lot of missions where the guns were just sat around to defend the points, and it actually became kind of annoying to be able to push them sometimes because they were incredibly accurate. So hopefully that is not the case this time, and you're able to just artillery strike them and be able to push with them. The next one is an Isuzu Type 94 auto transport. This will be part of the convoy mission. Seems like a simple troop carrier, and it does look kind of nice when it comes to it. The other thing is, because of World War Mode trying to be inclusive to everybody, there is obviously a mixture of RB and arcade going on. And with the fleets coming out, this is how they're going to do it. So in fleets in World War Mode, they're represented in the RB game mode with vehicle markers, arcade speed, and controllability multipliers with active torpedo speed. So basically what we have is faster ships with faster torpedoes, and also, the vehicle markers. Now, I'm wondering whether that will also include the aim assist that is around in arcade when it comes to where your shells land, and also reloadable torpedoes is something also which is on the menu because of the fact that, well, we don't know whether they're going to be able to reload the torpedoes. That would make a lot of the Japanese ships a hell of a lot better than they would be right now, even though they're already pretty strong when it comes to the high levels. There's also going to be, as we talked about, landing armies and artillery artillery fire from cruiser squadrons, so we're going to have to manage that pretty well and how all that's going to work. And ground vehicle markers in the battles have also been changed. So markers of detected enemies have been reduced in size and raised higher. So mission targets are now marked with a special new marker. So therefore, it's going to be harder to work out where enemies are. You're going to have to communicate a little bit better when it comes to spotting enemies and all of that good stuff, which I think is good. You know, it's making it still a good mix of arcade and realistic, but at the same time, you know, you're trying to make sure that everything is all good. They've also changed the mechanics of how aircraft are equipped when it comes to their weaponry. The commander doesn't need to choose suspended weaponry. Instead, fighters which have rocket bomb suspended weaponry, you need to choose the role in the army, the fighter and attacker. For example, a fighter can effectively intercept enemy bombers, and an attacker can attack ground and naval armies. So it all depends on what you choose it to be, instead of choosing specific loadouts for specific machines. So they made it slightly easier, which I think is kind of nice. There's also going to be a new award system for all players, which is based on the performance of specific tasks and not on the record table sheet, has been implemented. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ, holy Jesus. Hopefully this means that we won't have squadrons fighting each other instead of fighting the enemy for squadron points. I think that definitely sounds much better now when it comes to it overall, because if you don't know, the old system, the way it worked is if you had a lot of activity in the games and if you were doing well in the games, you're the ones put at the top of the squadron, and because you had different squadron rewards depending on where you ended up in the squadron, then it became incredibly messy for people who weren't at the top of the squadron. So for me, I'm happy to see that these are implemented now. Instead of, you know, just being based on a rating, now it's based on completing objectives and stuff like that. Obviously we need more information to know how that's going to work, but at least for me, it's looking good. The victory probability has also been added to the automatic battle description. This is great because we ran into a lot of missions in the first World War mode season where it's like, how the hell didn't we win this when it was like fighters versus bombers, and somehow the bombers were able to kill all the fighters. So I'm happy that they've done that for automatic battles, so you know when to fight and all of that stuff. Mechanics for technical defeats have also been added, so if the commanders of one of the parties are not active, don't control the armies for 20 minutes, the squadron will receive a technical defeat. So I'm wondering if you'll get less points for a technical defeat or not if you win that side. It does mean that you're not sat around for like an hour sorting it out though, so that's really good. And also, in order to participate in World War mode, your squadron will now need 20 members that have reached at least rank 3 for one nation, and no longer just 20 members. The maximum rank of the vehicles for each player in your squadron can be viewed in the squadron page in the World War tab. So they pretty much made it that you need to have at least rank 3 instead of just, 20 members. So you can't just create random squadrons, put in a bunch of alt accounts and try and work the system through that. They've also added special reloading and recharging zones for convoy missions. This is lovely. This is actually really nice to see. So therefore, you're not just going to be sat there not doing anything if you run out of ammo. And also, they've removed the capture point from air defense missions and have added a reloading recharging zone instead. Hopefully that means that we won't just have people running away from it trying to stall for time. Instead, that should work pretty well. They also fixed some bugs. A bug where in some cases players didn't receive any rating based on the results of the battle has been fixed, and a bug where ground armies were able to get into the battle through impassable obstacles. For example, a river has been fixed. That would have been hilarious. And also anti-tank cannons will now take into account obstacles, so trees, bushes, when searching for targets. Thank God as well, because a lot of the time, especially on the Battle of the Bulge operation that we did, there was a lot of times where you just get shot in areas. It was the Nordwind, which was the one. You just get shot out of nowhere from an AI, and it would be like, how the hell has that happened? Like, how have we done that? But luckily, they fixed that. So the fact is, there's a lot of positive changes here for, World War mode for the second season. There isn't many negatives here, but there are still some questions to be asked, about, such as, will Xbox players be allowed to participate? One of the things that we saw in the first season is that Xbox players were not included. and it would be really nice to see them included in this. Otherwise, it's not exactly fair on them that they get to watch on the sidelines while we have all of the fun. On top of this as well, they don't really talk about the award structure too much. They don't really talk about how that's all going to work, because of course, it's a little bit all over the place. At least it was in the first season, and once it was all worked out, they decided to change it halfway through the season, so therefore making it a little bit bonkers. So we're going to have to see how that all works. There is some confirmations from a few of the guys. So if we go over to the Russian side of things, somebody asks, or Mother Malam asks, and what is there as a reward for the season? And GeForce, who is an administrator, says, we will tell you about the awards before the start of the season in a few days. So that's first of all saying this is going to start in a few days, which is way too quick if that's the case. Could you please do the announcement a little bit earlier if this thing is supposed to start on the weekend? Because holy Jesus, it's not enough time to be able to sort everything out. And then Don't Flank With Me, or Flack With Me, says, do you need a proximity, how much time, effort to get a reward for a world war, as in the most hellish marathons, or is it feasible for the average player? Remember that these are translated from Russians, so they're a little bit all over the place. GeForce says, watching what awards in the new season, we plan to change the reward system in the direction of shares familiar to you. Thus, you will begin to receive awards already from the first any significant successes. Wait for the announcement. I just hope they bring back the coins. I thought the coins were really nice. I really liked the addition of the coins. So it would be great to see that. If I'm honest, I think personally that was one of the big changes that I personally enjoyed. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. The other thing as well is the last part, which is actually the actual secret operation. So what they did on the last World War mode, if you go to their War Thunder wiki and go to their scenarios page for the World War mode, they have this secret operation. And what you're looking at is Secret Operation 2 right now. Now, Secret Operation 1, if you have a look at it, is very much German and Soviet focused. What you pretty much have here is a bunch of lower tier boats and a bunch of fighters and a bunch of attackers and a ton of heavy tanks and medium tanks to fight each other in this secret operation. So this could definitely be a pretty fun time if everything works out pretty well. But then if you look at Secret Operation 2, this looks much more feasible when it comes to what we're going to see from the first few operations of the second season. You've got some medium tanks, some SPGs and SPAAs, and you also have stuff such as destroyers, PT boats, and heavy cruisers. And this is what I was talking about before when you look at the two nations, that there is some interesting ideas here. And also, another thing is they also added in some vehicles that you don't really see too much, such as the Elco 80-footer PT-109, which is of course JFK's PT boat. It's kind of interesting to see that here. I still am against event vehicles and also stuff like that, like bundle vehicles being in these modes. The other one also has the KV-1E, which is just insane to have. The KV-1E is a very, very powerful machine, especially since the Germans don't get the Panzer IV F2. They only get the F1 with the Stub 75. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that works. But with these two secret operations, it doesn't talk about the tasks or how it's going to work. It just gives you a general idea of what we're going to see. And I've got to say, I'm hyped. I really enjoyed the first season. Thought it was a lot of fun. From a squadron point of view, and if you want to get involved, make sure to get involved in squadrons. We have the class squadron as a partnership, you have Tech WS, you have Tech ES. If you want any information on any of the squadrons, make sure to go to the Discord and read the Tech Hub FAQ so you can become a part of this and have fun. And like we did last time, it was a hell of a lot of fun, and this time I'm sure it's going to be very similar. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Chris Giltname, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, and also Elove Goat and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.